currently in 17th position.
I didn't see them take the nose off.
No, I'm wondering if it's out on the track somewhere.
Perhaps arrived without it. These cars are interesting. Privately funded development, just a 2-year-old chassis. Dutch businessman named Klaus Wart, who is driving one of them this weekend.
That's the champion Audi back in again.
Ralph Kellner still behind the wheel. He started the car.
He's now been in the car for 2 hours and he doesn't look to be getting out.
Doesn't, does he?
Johnny Herbert's standing by, but now he's just walking back into the pit area.
Another nose goes on the 21 Ascari Judd. There are limits on how much time a driver can spend in the car, in case you were wondering. No more than 4 hours at any one time, and no more than 14 hours of the total of 24.
Well, speaking from a driver's point of view, I think I can safely say I wouldn't want to be in the car for more than 4 hours. I've raced around here for 3 hours 45 minutes in one go last year, and that was certainly enough for me.
Well, this is the 21 car. They put the number 20, the sister car's nose on it, so we'll see what they call it in time of the scoring. Like a new rear deck going on the champion Audi as well. Here you see the number 20 on the nose of the car.
About to be transformed to a 21.
Xavier Pompidou of France. Klaus Wart, the car owner, on the driving strength, along with Canadian Scott Maxwell. A true enthusiast effort out here doing battle with the big factories.
Ian Dawson running this team. Ian ran me in the grid back in, oh God, 1979, 78, whatever it was. Long time ago, I know that.
That car, too, has a spar running down the cockpit center. Meanwhile, Frank Biela continues on his way. The race lead just turned a 3:41.
It's his fastest lap of the race so far. Man in hot pursuit, Laurent Aiello at the moment, who's running 15 seconds a lap faster than GTP leader Martin Brundle in the Bentley.
We could see an Audi 1-2 in just a few minutes, and now the sky is growing very, very dark once again, and the wind is starting to change direction, so there could be raindrops coming up on 2 hours into this 24-hour marathon. And while Biela continues around, we want to introduce our special guest who has local ties as well as ties to the 24 hours. The son of a 3-time Le Mans winner, Phil Hill, who was also the 61 Formula One World Championship. His son Derek Hill drives for the locally based Dams team that's running the Cadillacs in this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans. Derek, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Now, you're driving Formula 3000 with the Dams team. I know it's been a rough start to the season, but you sound awfully optimistic about the second half.
Well, certainly. I knew going into F3000 it's one of the most competitive championships in the world, with top drivers from many of the European championships moving on to that series. So it is a challenging year, but I know in the big scheme of things, it's exactly where I have to be to keep progressing over here in Europe.
It's like the driver and his crew are consulting over the arranging of the mirror. They got it down. Well, what do you think of Le Mans? Is this your first up-close experience with the race, Derek, or have you been here before?
I was here when I was 15 with my father, and I think that was really the first time I decided I have to be a race car driver, because it was so exciting with the old pits, and being able to walk up and down the pit lane during the race at 15 years old was just unbelievable.
I can imagine it was.
And of course, back then you'd have been able to get in the pit lane, unlike today, where you can't get in the pit lane today unless you give them a thumbprint practically.
Those old pits were something. About half the height of the current arrangement. The fans used to pack the top of them, dangle their feet over the pit lane. Horribly dangerous by current standards, but an incredibly romantic place. What do you think about sports cars and the possibilities there, Derek? You've been an open wheel guy basically your entire career to this point.
Yeah, pretty much, although I've done now Daytona 3 times in the 24 hours. We won our class there in '97, so I did have a bit of experience, and I always loved driving the sports cars and would love to get back into them someday. For sure to do Le Mans next year if the possibility comes up.
Where's your next 3000 races? This coming weekend?
Yes, at the Nürburgring next weekend, yeah.
Have you been able to do some testing between the last race and the upcoming weekend?
Yeah, we were just at Hockenheim for 2 days after Monaco. It's good to get on the circuits that will actually be racing it. That was a new one to me.
How did it go?
Yeah, it went okay. We've had a bit of struggle with the setup in the beginning, but luckily, my teammate, who is actually out there in the garage, Sebastien Bourdais, I've been learning so much from him. It's his second year in the championship, and it's good to have a teammate with the experience and who's quick to learn from.
Stay right with us, Derek, as we watch the driver change. Carl Wendlinger getting into the number 16 Chrysler prototype, replacing longtime teammate Olivier Beretta. But we want to get you up to speed on another development in the race. Our owner of the production company that's producing our coverage here at Le Mans in association with Speedvision directed the event last year and is currently driving in it. His name is Terry Lingner from Indianapolis, Indiana. Andrew Marriott is standing by with him.
Yeah, and Terry's just climbed out of the car. Your first ever competitive laps here other than qualifying, of course. Terry, what was it like?
Oh, it's unbelievable. You know, it's such a great honor to be here, and the electricity of the crowd and everything today was fantastic. But it's definitely an eye-opener.
I've got to stop you because you went off course, and I think we've got it on tape right now.
Yeah, basically I found out that going into Indianapolis with 2 prototypes with a dry setup still on the car is not real nice. I thought I carried as much speed to make sure the first one got by, and then I went over and there was no grip to let the Johansson car go by, and boy, it just kind of drifted up there. But thankfully, thank you, I was right up against the wall so I could grip and drive right out, and we didn't even touch the side of the car. So that's my one, no more.
Terry, you're going to make history, and you're going to get in the truck and direct our coverage a bit later?
Yeah, I think we're going to try and whip those guys into shape anytime soon here. Actually, how's it going? Is it going good?
It's going great. Thanks very much, Terry Lingner.
Well, how appropriate that a boy from Indianapolis should go off at Indianapolis Corner.
Absolutely.
I'm sure this is a dream come true for Terry. His wife Louise and his boys are here as well, watching Daddy live his dream. We'll take another break and return with Derek Hill and more live coverage as we enter our 3rd hour at Le Mans.
I can update the deck thing.
Back live at Le Mans, Bob Varsha, Alan McNish, David Hobbs, Calvin Fish, and Andrew Marriott with you. We'll be joined later on. In fact, we'll be replaced later on by another crew of announcers as we take you through the night and into Sunday here at Le Mans. Here's a look at your class leaders. Frank Biela remains behind the wheel of the defending Le Mans champion #1 Audi. Tom Christensen looking for his 3rd overall victory in this race, and Emanuele Pirro to follow. There's the number 8 Bentley, currently in the hands of Eric Van de Poel. The Bentley's running 3rd and 4th. Currently 37 seconds and a minute 30 respectively down to the race leader.
That 8 car has actually struggled back up to the field at one stage. It was down in about 8th spot, so they've done very well to come up to their sister car. They're about a minute and a half behind it at the moment.
Apologize for the problems with our world feed. Pictures coming from French television. Occasionally have been getting a little bit of dropout on this very difficult day in terms of weather at Le Mans. Once again, it is getting very, very dark.
Boy, it is getting, I mean, over the city of Le Mans, which is just to our left, it is absolutely pouring down. I mean, you can't even see the city anymore. So if that comes over here, you can expect a flurry of activity, and we'll expect every single pit stop to be detailedly graphic by our 2 heroes down there.
Now that's Biela in the yellow helmet to the right of your screen, coming up behind Ralph Kellner's, who came back in and changed the rear deck on that Audi. As Alan McNish explained earlier, when you change the rear deck, you also change the rear wing. There may have been a setting change there.
Well, it was one of my thoughts that basically when Ralph came in, he changed onto a different rear bodywork purely to change the rear wing angle. Maybe they've got a different gurney flap on that second rear wing.
Calvin Fish can tell us more.
Well, you're absolutely right, Alan. They went to the high downforce setup with all the problems with the wet track and so forth, and they've now gone back to the low downforce setup on the car. And having done that, it's now starting to sprinkle rain here in pit lane. So it's a gamble out there right now. It's a guessing game for everyone, and we're just waiting for the #1 lead Audi. He should be in there shortly.
Frank Biela has just gone by, putting Ralph Kellner's a lap down as they head into the Mulsanne corner off of that new pavement where they lowered the bump.
Yes, that's quite different in there. It used to be very, very bumpy coming into that Mulsanne corner. The car would jump around a heck of a lot on the front and the rear because basically you're coming off normal roads where the trucks have been running up and down every day, and they were rutted badly in that section.
Ooh, big lock up there from
replay. This is Brundle still in the Bentley.
Now Callenders has gone to the low downforce setup, but whatever he's done, it's nothing like as quick down the straight as the number 1 car of Frank Wheeler. So
yeah, there could be varying different downforce levels between the two cars. I certainly know from Jost's point of view, they like to try and be as stable as possible on the mechanical side, but try and be as quick as possible on the wing aerodynamic side of the car.
that's that run up from Arnage to the Porsche curves. This is where we saw all that action earlier on. The Viper was in the grass on the left. And that's where Andy Pilgrim had trouble there. It was very, very wet over there. As you can see, it's completely dried out onto the Porsche curves, where you still see a bit of moisture lurking there on the ground. Not much, but it's still there. Although these guys are all on slicks now. But boy, I tell you what, it's about to get worse again.
We expect a pit stop from Frank Wheeler this time by.
Well, this is really going to be the telling factor, whether he comes in this lap, the next lap, or the following lap, how many laps they're able to do on a full tank of fuel.
And he passes the pit in. Because he also may be playing a guessing game with the weather, too. If they have indications that the raindrops are going to fall for real, he can come in and maximize the setup and the tire selection for the conditions should it rain. So another lap of this 8-mile course for Frank Wheeler. Chased by his teammate Laurent Aiello, Martin Brundle, Eric Van de Poel, and Ralph Kellenders. Your top 5. We'll be back with more from Le Mans in a moment. Back at Le Mans, highlights of hour 2. It began with a lead change as Frank Wheeler in the number 1 Audi passed Martin Brundle in the phenomenal new GTP Bentley. Meanwhile, the MG teammates in the LMP 675 class, led by Mark Blundell, while Anthony Reid suffered problems and the car was parked. Blundell had his own problems when he tried to pit, overcooked the pit entry, and plowed through the gravel trap. The Panos team just down the pit lane suffered not 1, but 2 left front tire departures. Jamie Davis and Jan Magnussen both suffering problems. Both cars went to the garage for repairs. All in all, a pretty dramatic hour 2 here at Le Mans. Another break coming up. There you see the clock ticking away just above the start-finish line. We'll be back with more live coverage here on Speedvision as the 24 hours of Le Mans rolls on. Welcome back live to Le Mans. While we were in commercial, Frank Wheeler pitted the race-leading number 1 Audi for fuel only. No driver change, no change of tires. He had gone 13 laps of this 8-mile circuit on that previous tank of fuel.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I expected out of them. I didn't think they'd go for 14 laps straight away. I think that'll probably come later on when they're maybe a little bit more in a comfortable position. But Laurent Aiello has been able to pull a lap back on the fuel strategy side in comparison to the number 1 car.
We'll see the Bentley number 7 in the hands of Martin Brundle, still shown in 2nd place, chasing one of the Cadillacs, being fielded by the Dams team, DAMS, Driot Arnaud Motorsports. Jean-Paul Driot and former Formula 1 star René Arnaud founded the company. Derek Hill, who drives the Dams Formula 3000 car, is still with us. Derek, I know it's a tremendous undertaking for a young American driver to try to make his way in the European open-wheeled ranks. How did the idea come about in your family?
Well, I always wanted to race over in Europe, but the momentum was just with me in my early career when I was in America. And I stuck with the Barber Dodge Pro Series and was able to have success there. And eventually the opportunity came up to test a Formula 3000 car. And I worked hard and found a chance to come on over.
Is it a big difference between the cars from the States, like Barber Dodge and the Formula 3000?
I'd say a big difference. It was quite a step to go, but I did have some series in between. I didn't go straight to F3000. I ended up doing some Toyota Atlantic and then the Palmer Audi series before stepping into the F3000 car.
Saw the Callaway, excuse me fellas, the Callaway in the hands of car owner Bob Mazzicola from Staten Island, New York, currently shown 27th. and running in 5th place in the GT category, lit up the tires in the biggest possible way there, heading for the Dunlop Bridge. And now we're seeing raindrops.
Is that rain I see
some of these
down there?
cameras?
Yeah, rain on the camera, and the track looked damp down there to me.
Derek, was your dad, Phil Hill, supportive of the idea when you told him you wanted to go race in Europe?
Absolutely. I think he saw that there was an opportunity for me as well, and he came over to some of the tests that I did early on, and I think he was all for it.
How do you find racing for a French-based team and a French-speaking team?
Well, I think I'm going to have to talk to you later on about how to get the most out of it.
So I raced for Dams back in 1990 and 91, and as a Brit sort of coming across the 30 miles of water, I found that the whole mentality is very, very different. Never mind the fact that the language and the potential problems of a language barrier, especially in such circumstances like qualifying and things like that. You know, I think if you're a native to the area and a native speaker, then it just does make it that much more easy.
Yeah, we'll try crossing the Atlantic. But I got to say, I'm lucky to have an engineer who is British, so there's no language barrier there. And they all speak fairly good English when they want to, but they can quickly go to French at the drop of a hat.
Let's go quickly down to the pit lane. Panos is coming back out, and Andrew Marriott is there.
Yes, he's been here for about 5 minutes. It was a double check. We've had those 2 wheels come off. It's a disc bell brake problem. They're worried about the nuts that hold on the disc bell brake. Alan will probably explain more what that is. But it really was a double check. Frank Lagos is still in the car, as he has been. Obviously, there's a big chink in this Panos armoury, but that car is going out, and I think they're fairly happy with what they found, actually. So it's not a problem that's going to put them out of the race, guys.
That'll come as a great relief to the entire Panos team, I'm sure. They come to this race with such high hopes. This race was the reason that Don Panos built the team and the associated companies. Of course, stalls.
I think that's just out of pure frustration of being in the pits for so long. The disc bell mounting problem is not something I'd be that comfortable with from a driver's point of view. It's effectively, it's the little bolts that hold on the disc bell to the disc.
Without them, you are not stopping, and perhaps the wheel will come adrift.
Well, it does then start to, it means that you can't lock the wheel correctly onto the whole thing, and the nut can't get tight enough. And so that's probably a reason why they were coming loose.
It seems like, as we said earlier, just too much of a coincidence for both those wheels to come off like that.
And now let's get caught up with the Corvettes in GTS. Here's Calvin.
Well, the 63 car currently leads, but Johnny O'Connell pitted a few laps ago. Doug Feehan is with me. Doug, what's the situation with the car right now? I believe you had a misfire problem.
Calvin, we developed a misfire for about half a lap. It mysteriously cleared up. As soon as it did, we lost telemetry. So we've got a couple things going on there. We're not quite sure what it is. On the next stop, we'll pull a data card, see if we can determine what the source of the miss was. And we'll also replace a telemetry antenna and see if, in fact, those two things were related or whether it was just coincidental. But the car's running fine, so we should be okay.
There's a long way to go, Doug, but the car that's been giving you the most trouble over the last couple of races has been the Celine, and they've been in the paddock for quite a while doing repairs. How does that make you feel about the durability of your car and the position for the 24 hours?
Well, certainly we're only at the 2-hour mark, so I have to tell you, with 22 hours left, you know, it could be us sitting in the garage in another 2. So we've got a long way to go before that really has any effect on the outcome, I think.
Okay, mate. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, Calvin.
An amazing thing to come over here all the way to France and see Corvettes lined up outside the gates. They are over here. There are Corvette clubs who are proud to turn out for their brand. And there goes one of the Corvettes past the pit in. Meanwhile, number 2 Audi, Laurent Aiello, continues on his way in 3rd place overall. Welcome back live to Le Mans. You're looking at the number 2 in the overall Bentley in the hands of Martin Brundle, who has been in the car since the start of this 69th 24 hours, about 2 hours and 22 minutes ago. The only representative in the GT prototype class, 2 Bentleys. Great looking car.
I was just going to say, they really did make a great job of those cars. A gorgeous color up close, and that striping on them, just very evocative of those cars that raced here in the 20s.
Now, moments ago, with rain spotting the camera lens, this happened out in Tertre Rouge, just as they were heading onto the Mulsanne, as Ni Amorim of Portugal spun his Chrysler prototype, fortunately without hitting anything.
Yeah, I think that was just a case being on the out lap on cold tyres and just a bit too much right foot.
Let's get down to the pit lane and Calvin Fish as the clouds continue to bunch up overhead.
The leader in 675 is in. The number 36 machine was driven by Didier Duradigas. He turns over to Hideshi Matsuda. A little bit of a lengthy driver change. They were practicing this morning after the warm-up, and it didn't look like it was very smooth then, and certainly not smooth right now. But the team has completed this work, I believe. They're changing the head pad there behind the driver's helmet with the driver's different stature. Hideshi looks like he's a little closer to the pedals, and that means he doesn't really have a good pad behind his head. So they changed that as well as the seat insert to make sure at these long distances that the guys are running there as comfortable as possible. Pretty routine, not the fastest thing in the world, but that's not really the be-all and end-all in this class. Just keeping these cars running and score a victory here over 24 hours.
It's the race leading car in the LMP 675 class as we go to the race leader, Frank Biela, passing one of the GT Porsches. Meanwhile, Andrew Marriott has more from pit lane.
Yes, I'm down in the dome. Sorry, put my teeth back in the dome pit, but they've just been doing an underbody check here. Val Hildebrand, the young Dutch driver, is sitting at the wheel. Of course, this car went so well early on. This is pretty routine. They obviously had some concern. They've put the rear deck back on the car now, and I suspect in just a moment this Japanese dome is going to accelerate out. Just one interesting bit of trivia. The very first race that Dome ever won, Jan Lammers was actually driving for them. It was about 17 years ago, guys.
And it's that long relationship with Dome and Toyota that allowed Jan Lammers to pull this together. This car was built very, very quickly. Didn't get an awful lot of test time. Young Hildebrand, just 19 years of age. The Dutchman tying American Gunnar Jeanette as the youngest driver in this year's field. One of the Chryslers out on course. Notice that bizarre marketing paint scheme, selling portions of the car in rectangles. Now it looks like they're going to have to go under the bonnet.
Boy, that's a shame. You know, this car got off to such a good start this afternoon. It was really jumped right into second spot straight away and just had one thing after the other.
Wonder if that's an engine problem. The Judds are normally fairly bulletproof. Maybe Andrew Marriott can add more.
Yeah, I think they've got a problem here with the engine. They just added a little bit more oil, I think it was, and the deck goes back on. So they took the deck off, they put it back on, now they put it off, and now it's back on again now. So a bit of a pantomime down here in this pit, but it's lost them a couple of minutes. But, you know, the time that you lose in the pits at Le Mans, that's the absolutely vital time. Alan McNish will tell you about that. But last year, the Audi that won only spent just over 20 minutes in the pits.
That is an absolute.
That was pretty astounding, wasn't it? 20 minutes in 24 hours. I mean, good Lord.
It's critical. It was the difference between, from my point of view, the winning and losing was the actual gearbox change when we came in for that, and so therefore the least time you spend in the pits, more time you spend on the circuit, and you go faster on the circuit.
Yep. This is chassis number 2 of the Dome line of LMP 900 cars. And they'll run it in the FIA Sports Car Championship this year as well. Built by Japanese engineers in just 10 days. Everything worked the first time they turned the switch, but as David mentioned, they are not having a good 24 hours thus far. But there's a long way to go. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back live to Le Mans. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, and Alan McNish. Shortly, we'll be coming to the end of our opening stint, covering the greatest sports car race in the world. There you see one of the Bentleys making its way down the pit lane. Frank Biela in the Audi remains the race leader. Joining us after the next few minutes will be a new announced team. Rick Benjamin and Steve Matchett of Formula One fame, both rookies here at Le Mans. They'll be joined by Derek Daly, who, of course, is a veteran of Le Mans, both as a driver and a commentator. I know you guys have been watching. What do you think of what you've seen thus far?
Bob, it's got to be the spectacle that's the most amazing part of this. I've been to Indianapolis, Daytona, Watkins Glen, other great racetracks. This is one of a kind. Derek Daly, would you say the weather has been the biggest change, the biggest story we've seen so far?
I mean, it really has, because the car
saw such carnage in that early lap. But the scary thing about it is that there are scattered showers forecasted all through the night and all day tomorrow. But you know, as we look down the front straight here, what I love about Le Mans, it's fueled by passion. It is a race against drivers, teams, and countries. And the Bentley flag was a hot seller all weekend here because the British are here in force to support Bentley. I hope they can be reliable.
Bentley and MG, and we'll talk more about that in the next 3 hours. Steve Manchin, my fellow first-timer. From a technology standpoint, what's impressed you?
From a technology standpoint, I'd say it's the way that the teams are working. They've been very, very professional, what I've seen so far. Certainly Bentley, MG, Audi. But things are almost set up exactly like you would expect a Formula One car to be set up. You know, there's a very, very fine detail on the cars, precision welding on all the materials. It's very, very impressive what I've seen so far. I love it.
Guys, we've enjoyed your call the first couple of hours. We'll join you in a moment.
All right, thanks, guys. Meanwhile, the action continues down on the racetrack. Martin Brundle remains in second in the Bentley. As our cameraman continues to struggle with that high wind shot. Now, this is the leading car in the GTS category, down to Andrew Marriott.
Well, I was just going to talk to Johnny Molam, a rival TV station from Europe has just jumped in. I'm going to try and bird dog on what they're saying.
I came into Tetra Rouge on one lap and they had the slippery flags out and I just slowed right down. And it was so slippery, I'm glad I slowed down, otherwise I would have gone off if I'd even gone through at half racing speed. It gets so greasy out there, especially when you're on slicks and it starts raining, but I was just trying to keep a consistent pace. I could have probably gone 2 or 3 seconds faster, but I don't see any point at the moment. The Corvette was in front of me, just overtook me. I just came out after my pit stop, and then I basically just kept him in within striking distance, and he came into the pits. No problem. It's still a long, long way to go yet.
You're leading GTS, Johnny.
Oh, I think yeah, okay. I mean, that's what they said, so we're happy with that, but I don't know. We're only 2 or 3 hours into the race, so...
You're very unhappy with the car in qualifying. Is it working much better?
Yeah, I mean, we changed to put another engine in and it's transformed the handling of the car. I'm sort of looking after the brakes. I'm braking at 200 markers everywhere. I'm not pushing at all. It's quite easy to drive at the moment, apart from when it starts raining, unfortunately.
What's it like not racing a Porsche? You raced a Porsche, the only car you raced for 5 years.
No, it's very different to be in a car with some downforce like this, and obviously it's good for me to get used to having downforce, especially somewhere like Le Mans. It's strange, especially seeing people like Alwyn Springer and Herbert Amphora here, and sort of normally I have to go up to them and sort of doff my hat to them, so I still do it now just in case, because I'll be back with them in Sears Point in the American Le Mans Series.
Just say a quick word to Alan Mandish. He's been cheering you on.
Yeah, it's good to have Alan here, actually. He gave me some tips if it really, really rains later on. Hopefully I'll be able to put them into good effect.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, Mr. Molam there, he's my next-door neighbour, so I think I'll be getting some grief through the week if I didn't give him the correct tips. Hopefully he'll put them to good use. So far, looks very, very good for that car.
Johnny Molam, as pointed out by Andrew Marriott, has been a Porsche driver for a long time. He arrived at the 12 Hours of Sebring hoping to team with Bob Wallach in that sports car classic. Of course, that never happened. Wallach tragically killed in a road accident before the event took place. One of 4 former regulars here at Le Mans who left us this year. In addition to Bob Wallach, Michele Alboreto, a former winner, as was Luis Crajas, who drove under the name John Winter, and Jean-Louis Ricci as well. So there is a note of sadness this year at Le Mans with the loss of some of the sport's great warriors. There's the Corvette making its way around. The skies continue to threaten, but we do not have a steady rate anywhere on the racetrack right now. Derek Hill, we want to thank you for being with us here in the announce booth. And gentlemen, time for final thoughts from you before we depart until about 8:30 Eastern time when we'll be back.
Well, it was certainly an incredibly hectic first 45 minutes. I never seen quite so much action in 45 minutes. Had about the same amount of action as you had in the whole 24 hours, but things seem to have settled out now, but there are more rain clouds coming.
Well, I think the important thing was at the beginning there was so much confusion in the pits. People didn't know to go wets, to go dries, to go intermediates. They didn't know what they were going to have to do with the accident damage. And like you say, it has settled down now. Things are looking more steady and more as we understand at the front. However, there is got to be a lot more rain, a lot more slippery conditions to come.
I said at the beginning of the show that these drivers were going to have to work harder than ever for Le Mans glory, and the first couple of hours have certainly proven to be that way. Final thoughts now from our pit reporters, beginning with Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm down in the MG pit, and this challenge seems to be withering away, to be honest. Johnny Kane is sitting in the car at the moment. Sorry, it's Warren Hughes, and they're working on the engine. You know, there's been concerns with these MGs, but from my point of view, it's been absolutely fantastic to see Bentley and MG come back for a Brit. That's something special. Well, I think Calvin probably agrees. Calvin.
Be an outstanding battle the rest of the way, and as Alan McNish knows, sometimes when you get these conditions, it's hard for these race car drivers to realize exactly how slow you need to go on slick tires in the wet conditions. And the other thing is it becomes very tiring. It's one thing to be in a 13, 14 lap stint when everything is the same, but when the conditions are changing lap in, lap out, it gets really demanding physically and mentally.
All right, thanks very much, gentlemen. One of the Cadillacs pitting. You saw that the number 79 GT Porsche for George Fourgeois from the United States has spun and buried the rear axle. They'll be pushing that car out. Pit stop and driver change for the 5 Cadillac. Meanwhile, Frank Biela in the number 1 defending champion Audi continues on his way, currently 1 minute 38 seconds up on the second place Bentley in the hands of Martin Brundle, and just a couple of seconds behind Brundle is Laurent Aiello. Like Biela, he's been in that Audi since the beginning of the race, as has Brundle in the Bentley. They are the top 3, and should Aiello get by, it will be an Audi 1-2 once again. Mark Goosen's getting into the car now. Cadillac returning to Le Mans, where they had a very rough debut last year. The car has been thoroughly shaken down. The engine almost entirely different, but they will have a completely new Cadillac sports car ready for next year's race. The engine fires. Goosen drops it into gear and sends his best to the crew as he heads out for his first laps in this Le Mans Classic. With that, we'll take a break. Rick Benjamin, Derek Daly, and Steve Matchett will be with you when we return as we take you through the night and into Sunday, all the way to the checkered flag, live here on Speedvision. So long for now, everyone.
And welcome back to the Circuit de la Sarthe, the 24 hours of Le Mans here on Speedvision. Coverage all through the day and night, of course, right here to the checkered flag. I'm Rick Benjamin, joined inside by Derek Daly and Steve Matchett. Glad to have you along. Guy Hobbs and Dave Burns will be on pit road as we watch the field move away down into turn 1. Our cast of characters does number about 15, so I had to make sure we had the correct starting lineup for the next 3 hours. Gentlemen, good to have you alongside. As we watch developments here in the last several moments, the Audis have now moved into the top 2 positions, and the Bentley, with Martin Brundle still on board, the prototype, the closed car, has dropped back to 3rd spot.
And we are still in the dry here, but believe it or not, we have indications that it is actually raining down at Indianapolis as we speak. So these constant intermittent rain showers that we expect to have most of the way through the night and tomorrow, unfortunately, because of the weather forecast, we may be about to get a second dump pretty soon.
We have watched the clouds move around here for much of the afternoon. You can see it's very dark in certain parts of the course. As we take a look at car number 2, the second of the Audis, Laurent Aiello is driving. While we were away a moment ago, he just moved into 2nd spot. Let's see how this was done. Brundle to the inside. Here comes Aiello.
And it's a simple down the inside, and Brundle has been around these things long enough. When somebody goes down and takes the apex away from you, you let him go. You don't fight in a long 24-hour race like this. So he was happy to just let him go, knowing he was beaten man at that particular corner.
We're early in this. It's about 2.5 hours, 2:40 into this 24-hour run. No point in contesting a position, Steve?
I think that's exactly right, and Brundle is probably one of the most experienced drivers around now, certainly. I mean, I worked with him in '92. We had a year together when we were both at Benetton, and he's got very good racecraft. He's got very good knowledge of when to overtake, when to concede, and when to conserve tyres, etc., etc. And exactly like you say, Rick, this is a long, long race. And if you look out the booth now, starting to downpour again. We actually sat over in the TV lounge earlier on and we're wondering whether or not when the shift change was coming up with the booth announcers. We said 6:31 we expected to downpour, and it is absolutely pouring.
We were planning on bringing the rain with Us bringing the umbrellas and so forth. We've got one car in trouble. It's the number 4 Audi, the Stefan Johansson team machine. They have had problems off and on today. They're shown 16th right now with Johansson still in. And look at the rain here on the front straightaway, Derek Daly.
And that is going to send everybody in a scurry down that pit lane, because we saw what happened earlier. It is so difficult to take a chance to stay out on slick tires. And the cars that are passing the pit lane right now, they may regret, in fact, that they did not peel off and go straight in.
As we show you our class leaders in 4 of the categories, and the one Audi is leading in the prototype 900 kilogram class, and the number 33 MG leads the lights class. The 675s, Ron Fellows, Scott Pruitt, Johnny O'Connell, and one of the 2 Corvettes leading in GTS, and Gunnar Jeanette's Porsche leading in GT, as we watch the field funnel down the pit road for those tire changes.
And look how fast the downpour comes here. I mean, it is like a tap that just gets turned on. I mean, a sudden torrential downpour from sunshine not 2 minutes ago.
Let's cover some of the action on pit road. The Johnny O'Connell Corvette, the 63, is on pit road. Here's Guy Hobbs.
The first one of all the cars in since this downpour, and everyone on pit lane is laid out. Came in very cautiously and very slowly, of course, transferring from the tarmac onto that slick concrete. They're adding fuel right now, waiting to go to the tire change, and these aren't intermediates they're going to be putting on. These are full wets there. Now the fuel is in work, but the Corvette is the first one of all the cars in. And just coming right now is the number 2 Audi. And the other Corvettes are laid out, as are the Cadillacs. Unfortunately for the one Cadillac, the 6 just stopped with Max Angelelli in it. They came in, added fuel, and went back up.
As we take a look at the number 2 Audi, Laurent Aiello bringing that machine onto pit road for tires, and they'll go with a driver change for the first time here this afternoon.
Now remember, we told you earlier that it started at Indianapolis. That is about half a lap away, so we know at least half of the track is completely awash like we see here. So I would expect almost everybody to come in, considering the carnage that we saw earlier with the chances of staying on slicks.
And the second Corvette, the 64 car, has come down pit road. Back to Guy Hobbs.
And unfortunately for the 64 car, they weren't able to pull directly into their pit because the 63 is still in there. Had to pull into a pit that is no longer being used, and then the crew wheeled him back, so that's going to cost them a couple of seconds. The 63 in the meantime being held in pit lane while the 16 Oreca Chrysler comes in. Now the fuel is in on the 64 and they go to work again, and again it's not just intermediates, it's full slicks on the 64. As the 16 car also gets its work taken care of. Again, no driver change in either case here, but definite confusion. As you know, the pit here at Le Mans is generally confusing, even in the dry and in the daylight, but now serious confusion as all the teams come in.
The Bentley car, the number 7 that's been running up front much of the afternoon, has been on pit road as well. Dave Burns, did they have a problem?
Well, and as we stand here, I just got the pack for our radio frequency broadcast down here from Andrew Marriott, and it was completely dry. We came down to the Bentley area, and they were waiting on Martin Brundle to bring it in. He did so, and before he did it, of course, the downpour started that you've been describing. We ran under cover. The wind was blowing one way. We were completely dry. The wind turned around and shifted and blew the rain back at us. It's completely a downpour down here and a whole mess for the crew. When he came in, it was a downpour. The crew had, of course, gone for full rains at that point. He got out, and Guy Smith got in, and it was a fairly routine pit stop, if you can call routine in this kind of weather anything like routine.
Now, Dave Burns, we're hearing reports there might be some thunder out on the race course. Did you hear that on pit road?
Yeah, thunder definitely, but I didn't necessarily hear that. What I saw was a little bit frightening, and that was lightning, and it's going across the sky down here, so it's a real thunderstorm down here right now. The crews are, ducked back under into their garage area there as soon as they got done, but it's a real mess right now.
Tough conditions certainly have prevailed as we watch the number 1 Audi. This is the lead car. Frank Biella has been in this machine for all 38 laps in the early going here. Biella will come down pit road. The other Bentley, the 8th car, will come. Eric Vanderpoel's driving that machine right now. He will come onto pit road as the entire field. The safety car is out. We have a full course caution now as we are in hour number 3 of the 24 hours of Le Mans. We'll be back with plenty more here on Speedvision.
Speedvision Speedvision's live flag-to-flag coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Porsche. Discover what only Porsche brings to driving.
Beautiful weather much of the week in the city of Le Mans. Very picturesque place that we've enjoyed the last couple of days. The folks who live in this part of France certainly turn out in droves to support the race. All the merchants in town do their part as well. It's been a week of enjoyment for all of us on the Speedvision broadcast team. But right now, the folks on pit road and out watching Derek Daly are not having much fun because of the pouring rain.
And of course, the man who may be under the gun now is Jackie Ickx. Jackie Ickx, of course, probably the most famous racing driver ever to run for the Le Mans 24-hour race, is the race director this weekend. In similar conditions at the Grand Prix of Monaco several years ago, he actually waved the red flag and called the race, and most people think maybe a tiny bit too early. So I wonder how long will he watch these torrential conditions before maybe he's forced to stop these boys and take a breather.
Jackie Ickx, a 6-time winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. His daughter Vanina is in competition here this weekend as we take a look at one of the Chrysler machines on pit road for a tire change. I want to bring in on our broadcast John Middlebrook, Vice President of General Motors. John, good to have you with us. Your company certainly has a huge presence here this weekend.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We're really enjoying it and watching the Cadillacs and the Corvettes run.
What does this mean? What does this event mean to you in a global sense for both of those brands?
Well, they're both global brands for us. Cadillac, we want a presence around the world, and we certainly want to increase it in Europe, and this is where you have to be to do that. And of course, Corvette is also a global brand, and we've been increasing our sales in Europe of Corvette. We've got Corvette owners here from both the United States and Europe, and so it's great to see them out there doing well as they are right now.
John, something that always strikes me at Le Mans, and I mentioned it in our on-camera, this is a race about drivers, teams, but nations. I mean, to see the British come down and support the British cars and British drivers in their droves, it really is an impressive event at Le Mans to see the nations involved too.
Yeah, no question. It is a global event. We've got a number of our Cadillac dealers here and their wives, and they're cheering when that pace car goes by because we're leading the race. But we're having a great time. It's a great place to entertain dealers, and we have a lot of press here from the United States with us, and so it's just a great venue.
Now, the Corvette has taken a couple of years to develop. It's been very successful. The Cadillac, I'm sure, has not met your expectations yet. How committed are you to keeping the Cadillac prototype program alive?
Yeah, we're committed. Actually, the Corvette really has met our expectations. We knew it was going to take time to build this team, and we have an all-new car under construction right now for next year, so that may answer your question on our commitment. We'll be back here with an all-new product, and frankly, we expect to be up there really running for the championship and for the overall win next year. And hey, this night is not over, and we're doing fine with the Cadillacs right now. I think we're 12th and 13th, and that is about where we'd want to be right now.
A good finish would be above expectations, probably.
That's right. I mean, obviously, we came into this with hopes for maybe a top 5, and that's still on the boards right now.
Well, John Middlebrook, Derek, go ahead.
Are you going to stay up all night, John?
I'm going to stay up until at least 1 or 2. But I can't guarantee all night.
Yeah.
We appreciate you stopping by, John. Hope to see you throughout the course of the night and tomorrow as well. A lot of activity on pit road. Dave Burns.
Well, and when you take a monster stint, you normally didn't expect it to have as many twists and turns and ins and outs as it was for Martin Brundle. Have you ever experienced that period of time where so much has happened at the start of a race?
I mean, it's bizarre. It's four seasons in one lap. You don't know what to expect next, and you have to drive well within your car because, you know, the next braking zone, it could be wet and you're going to sail straight off the road.
What about as far as the rain now? I mean, when you brought it in, it was still dry, was it not? And it had not even hit the windshield yet?
No, it was just starting to rain in the last 3 or 4 corners. I had one of those lucky stops where I was due in anyway, and it started raining on pit lane. So we were able to send Guy. I thought I was staying in the car. I thought I got another stint, to be honest, but so it was a bit of a slow driver change. But he's gone out on inters. That's a handful in these conditions, intermediates.
I understand with the development of the car, many of the tests that you boys had were in the rain. So are you developed in the rain, so to speak?
We've had 10 laps in the rain total. Really? We had all in the dry. So that is the first experience of this car in the rain. My first ever laps around here in the weather. I've been here 8 times. It's never rained, strangely, when I've been in the car anyway.
We were going for 9, but we didn't get that, did we? Derek Bell is distilling some information from Martin. What role during the 24 hours this time, Derek, as you get information from Martin and from Guy, what are you putting together?
It's more the fact that I've done a lot of races in the rain here, and maybe in some ways I could help when we discussed the other day about what it was like in the rain out there. As he said, he's 8 times and never driven in the rain. it probably didn't help at all, because when the rain came, it's a totally different scenario this year than 5 years ago. But, you know, all I try and do is perhaps give a bit of morale boost now and again when they get down, and when he gets up, hit him on the head and say it's not over yet. There's still 21 hours to go.
And what about my question regarding testing? Some of the folks seem to think that you had some time on the Dunlop rain tire. Is that true?
But we have not had any time at all. I mean, believe winter in Europe is pretty miserable, but we've had very little time. And Martin said, you know, done about 8 or 10 laps. And of course, on that particular day, they weren't going to wet rain test anyway. They were there for other reasons, so they didn't really use it as a development.
So this becomes the development.
Absolutely, and we know that our cars are closed, as you know, and we have a lot of trouble with water getting in and not wanting to go out very quickly, and a lot of steam inside, and I'm sure he can tell you better than me.
All right, gents, thanks very much. We appreciate it, Martin. Good job. We'll get back to more of the Bentley story as the day goes on. The rain continues to come down here, Rick.
And of course, earlier, remember, we had rain-dry situations, so you had intermediates and wets, and it was very much a guessing game. Right now, there is no guess here. This is as full and as deep a group set of wets as you can get, which is interesting that Brundle says Guy Smith is on intermediates. If this rain continues, he's going to be in trouble in that Bentley. No, he's not going to be fast.
And it looks as though there's standing water in some places up
right.
there. We've had intense rain, hard rain, many places as we take a look down on pit road. Some of the machines coming down to effect their tire changes. Team Ascari among those making that move. Hour 3 at Le Mans. We'll be back here on Speedvision. In a heck of a rainstorm here at Le Mans. Hour 3 just about coming to a close. Derek Daly and the drivers of the open top cars are not having any fun right now.
Now that is an interesting question, because the drivers in the open top cars sometimes prefer open top in the rain because the wind blows the rain away, whereas in fact the Bentley, a closed top car, can actually draw water in and soak the driver. Steve?
Yeah, and to add what you were saying earlier on about Martin Brundle and the car going out on intermediates, completely bizarre moving. Obviously, you know, this is almost monsoon conditions, but going on from that point, he was mentioning the fact that they haven't actually done any running in the wet. So remember, these electronics are exposed to all this moisture that's going about, and certainly when I was testing Formula 1 machinery, one of the most important things you had to do was do a wet test, because until you find out where that water is going to find itself into the plugs, it might be military spec plugs, but of course there's a lot more. Look at the lights and whatever you've got on these cars that you haven't got on an F1 car. You get water in those electronics and bop, everything stops.
And some of these teams have not tested much in the wet, as you were saying, Steve, so that'll be something to watch. We show you the leaders in the various categories here during the 24 hours of Le Mans, closing out hour number 3 on Speedvision. We'll be back with much more.